Pam has been here since 2018. She started doing genealogical research because she knew very little about her family background. She was told she was 100% Irish and that everybody on both sides came over to the US during the potato famine in the 1800s. She was told that even her family name, Anderson, was Irish, as in Andrew's son, rather than Scandinavian. Well, since then, she has learned that and none of that is true. What have you learned about yourself, Pam?
Well, mostly British and Scandinavian, but people have been coming over since well before the revolution, and there's some long lines that have been fun to research. I didn't know anything when I started. It's been fun.
That's great. So what a journey. Well, we have a little pre-recorded video for all of you that talks about the Unknowns Project and explains how that works and gives you some tips on searching for people. So we're going to run that. It's about 19 so minutes long, and then we're going to come back and take questions from everybody.
And before we start that, I want to take 1 minute to say, one, thank you, Julie, for helping with the slides that you all are about to see. And two, I'm using Family Search and FindaGrave as the examples of how to do this. But I want to say that if you're in another place and you're using Archeon or Find My Past or some other platform, I think many of the hints that I show you will help you there as well. So stay with me, even if you're not in Midwest United States, because you're going to find some things that'll help.
Absolutely. So we're going to pop out and show you the videos. Hang around. I hope you learned something, and we'll be back to answer questions.
Julie and I have put this presentation together to give you some tips on how to solve some of the 350,000 unknowns that we have on WikiTree. We can solve many of them, but if we can't solve them, we can at least make some improvements to make it more likely that other researchers can fix them. And we really want to help these women, they're largely women, whose family connections have been lost and are listed as unknown. So let's plunge in and learn some tips for solving for unknowns. How do you find them? Well, you can look at any profile that you manage, and you'll see these three little boxes like you see in the middle of this page that says WikiTree. And you can put the word unknown in that upper right box, and it will give you a list of 350,000 unknowns. And then you can plug in this limit to watch list option, and it will show you what unknowns you have on your watch list. Now, I do want to note, these slides are going to be available to you as a link on the unknowns page and also as a downloaded PDF. So don't feel you have to frantically take notes and go look on another screen. We're also going to give you time for questions at the end of the presentation. So just follow along with us. Another place you can look is if you go to the unknowns page, the team process page, you can find this table. And we have divided them up by centuries. So if you're most comfortable working in a certain time period, you could choose that. Now notice that the first time we counted them on this table was in March, and you can see how much they've gone up since in October. So we really do need your help to try to solve these. So we're getting ready to solve an unknown. We're getting ready to research. We want to look for obvious surname hints. So if you are in an era where women commonly took their husband's name at the time of marriage, you want to add that. You need to know the culture you're working in to know whether that's the case. You also want to look for parents or siblings and see who is listed there that might share the same surname. Obvious surnames hints. In this case, we have some sources on a profile. These are all real profiles that we've borrowed for our presentation. We have the marriage of a child and the death of a child. You might also see sources that look like these for the birth of a child. Frequently, the mother is listed by her last name at birth, what we used to call her married name. So look for the information that's already on the profile. Maybe it's already been solved. Another thing you want to look for is the possibility that a woman's last name at birth is the same as her married name. She was a Lyman who married a Lyman. It would be fairly unusual for the marriage document to show her last name at Lyman if it wasn't Lyman at the time she came in the door. It might be. You have to work a little bit harder to prove these, but it does happen. Cousins married cousins. You also want to double check the data doctor suggestions that are on the profile. If you look at the bottom of the profile while you're in edit mode, or you can use the suggestion link on the profile ID menu, you will see something that looks like this. And in this case, it's a misspelled word in the location. If you know how to solve it and it's easy to fix, fix it. If it's gobbledygook that you don't understand and you don't know what it means, feel free to leave it. Fix it if you can, let it go if you can't, but it might make the profile stronger. The last thing you want to do before you dig into trying to research is to bring the profile format up to standard. A lot of these GEDCOM profiles don't even have the biography sources and reference section. You can do a little editing for readability just to set it up so that it looks better for the future. Finally, very important is to check for duplicates. Before you go to work on this profile, see if there's another one with the same name that's already researched and already done that you can merge them. It doesn't happen real often, but it does happen often enough that we want to make sure that you check. So there's information here. You go to find and search. You can sort the search results. You can propose merges. You can make yourself a note to come back and check in 30 days to see that the merge gets completed. So these are good preliminary steps to take. Now that you've done that, you want to rev your search engines. You want to use this wonderful tool that we have on WikiTree called Root Search. There are others, but I'm going to talk about this one today. When you, on the profile, if you look over in the right-hand column and roll down, you'll see this research option, Root Search for Emma Unknown. And when you click on that, you'll get a box that looks something like this with some pre-entered information from the profile about names or dates that may have come from the profile. You want to customize this so that it shows the ones you really use. So mine, for example, has Ancestry because I do have a subscription. It shows Family Search. It shows FindaGrave. It shows newspapers. It doesn't show the ones that I never use. I rarely go to MyHeritage. I rarely go to Gophers. So I've eliminated those so that the ones I use are actually in front of me. I usually start with FindaGrave. If you go to Family Search, it'll take you to FindaGrave, but I usually start here because it's the quickest. So the first thing I do is make sure I use the woman's married name. If I don't have some rough dates, I'll put a rough estimate in. I'll put in whatever information I have. FindaGrave is not definitive. Just because FindaGrave says her last name at birth is Jones doesn't mean that her last name at birth is Jones. But it's a good starting point, a good hint that you can plug in as a last name and see what else you find. You want to try to find 3 sources showing the family members together to prove it. But FindaGrave is a good start. So here's an example of how we can use this information. This profile, for example, has exact dates, not just 1898, but 10 July 1898 and 2 November. So at some point, somebody's seen something somewhere, whether it's on FindaGrave or in a family Bible, about these exact dates. So I'm wondering why there's no source using FindaGrave on this. So I plug in that information in Root Search. I go to FindaGrave and I put in her last name as Morin, and this is the entry I find. Murdy Maybell Bentley. Somebody somewhere thinks her last name at birth was Bentley. And notice that she has 4 or 5 children on the profile, and she has like 12 on FindaGrave. So keep in mind that adding some of those other children's data might help you get more information. Now we go back to root search. We use Bentley as a starting point, and we see what we find as far as sources. Notice also on this one, we have Bessie Howell with exact dates and a picture of her tombstone, but no source. So we definitely want to go to FindaGrave and see if that has been documented. And we discover that, yes, she has a profile. And not only that, but her parents are listed. Now, is that accurate? Maybe, maybe not. But I would certainly put in Bessie Martin Howell and see what I find. I would also double check to see if Romulus, her purported father, already has a WikiTree profile. He may have a daughter named Bessie that's already sourced. So we definitely want to check that out. Sometimes you go to FindaGrave and you don't get anything, and you need to know about these little tabs that will allow you to broaden the data. Maybe they said about 1805, but if I give it plus or minus 3 years, plus or minus 5 years, and check it, frequently she died in December of 1804, and I'll find the profile, but you need to know how to use these little tabs that broaden your search range on FindaGrave. Another thing you'll find on profiles is that there are people who have gone through WikiTree and added news stories about various and sundry disasters and crashes. They've also put entire obituaries onto profiles. So it's important to read through that. In this case, we have Helen Unknown Carter, but the driver of the car was the brother-in-law of Mrs. Carter. Besides Perry, the dead were his sister-in-law. So it might be that the fact that his name is Perry and he is her brother-in-law might lead you to a surname that you can put into root search and try. Sometimes they will give you an alternative name. Here we have Sarah Clements, aka Hathcock, and she's the daughter of Hathcock. So I'm certainly going to put her last name in to root search. Here you see the little blue, teal blue in the middle of the root search page. I'm going to put Hathcock in as her family name and see what I get when I go to Family Tree. And sure enough, there are sources for Sarah Rena Hathcock. What you really hope you find when you go to Family Tree is that little red arrow pointing to attached in Family Tree, where there's a whole bunch of sources about this person that you can then make use of. And we'll see more about that in a little bit. Here it is. Sarah Hathcock has 11 sources on Family Tree, and they've been listed here when you click on that in chronological order. Now, are they all accurate? Maybe not. There might be more than one Sarah Hathcock, but they're worth checking. Here we see a marriage, which is shown multiple times. We might see census documents. We definitely want to use those sources, check them to see if that guides us through finding her last name at birth. Every once in a while, you find an unknown man. In this case, it's kind of a nice turnaround. You start with the wife. In this case, the wife has an unusual name, Argent Godwin. Now, one thing is, it would be a really great idea to go to Argent's profile and add Mantell as her current last name, because she does live in a time and place where women take their husband's surnames. But if we look up John Mantell, if we look up Argent and we find a marriage record, which indeed in this case we do, we find the marriage record, we see if he has a family search profile, and indeed he is the son of someone named Mantell. So we can get rid of the unknown on his. I think sometimes researchers are just afraid that they don't have enough sources to prove that. So try using the wife's name if you can. If you're not doing well with that route, here we have a case of a woman named Iola Ramsey. She's married to somebody named Bruce Ramsey. We don't know much about her, but if we go and look at his profile, we find records, we check his source for clues, we discovered that he married a woman named Iola Brown, and then we can put Brown into Family Search and move forward researching her and get more sources. The one on the right is another interesting case. Elizabeth Weatherby, when I went to look her up, I went to David Weatherby and I didn't find anything, but it turned out that there were a whole lot of sources for a David Weatherly with an L, Weather L-Y. And so I was able to search through that and discover, and really ideally I would take the time and trouble to go clear through and fix the whole family because it's a typo on the part of the person who built the profile. So what if you're still stuck? One thing you could do is go back and look for GEDCOMS, everybody pronounces it differently. And you could look for that profile manager's contribution feed on a profile and see what else he created about the same time. You could search WikiTree for the name of that file. There's all sorts of information about how to get involved with those. That's another presentation. But that's another way you might find something. And you also want to use G2G, our wonderful collaborative forum, to ask for help. Put a post up there that tells everything you know and say, what else can you help me find about this person? Share what you know about that person, and see if somebody else says, oh, I've been looking for that person. I know more about that. And use different tags to attract the attention of members. And some of the G2G pilots will help you if they have ideas of different tags and ways you might do that. We are a wonderful collaborative community. Okay, so hallelujah, I found a name. You've solved the unknown. You know what the answer is. What I do is I adopt the profile. I make the changes and note that the sources are on the profile. And then I click the privacy tab, trusted list, and use the remove yourself button to orphan it again. I can't keep all of these, and I feel good knowing that I left it in better shape than I found it. If it does have a profile manager, leave a friendly comment that says, hey, I found some sources. Could you take a minute and update this? Follow it up in a few weeks, or use the trusted list request link, and then remove yourself from the profile when you're done. And I hope you have the best of luck with cooperating profile managers. Sometimes it's a dead end. You do all this work, you try all these hints and some others that you know that I don't, and it's a dead end. But you want to at least leave research notes on the profile that says when you searched, what you checked, what you tried to do, something along the lines of, I checked Family Search, FindaGrave, and Ancestry and couldn't find the last name at birth. And leave it and hope that that keeps someone else from retracing your footsteps, doing the same work again. But maybe they'll have different information that supplements what you did. Do notice that after the words couldn't find anything, there's 4 little tilde marks. If you type those 4 tildes, it will leave a timestamp on that profile with your name and date, and somebody will know who you were to know that that's who was working on this and what happened. You might also consider doing a couple of things for the good of our big collective tree, and that is collaborative tree, and that is do more profiles need to be created. We had the profile where there were 5 children on the profile, but FindaGrave said they had 12. There are people that like to go around creating profiles, or they'll do it during a thon. We want to leave that category. Maybe it's Iowa or Alabama or wherever it is, and needs profiles created so that somebody finds that. Another thing is that if in the process of checking census or other documents, you notice that the person represented by the profile is listed as Black or mulatto, please add the African American sticker, or contact the Black Heritage Project if it's in another part of the world. They want to find these profiles. They're trying very hard to build records with people for whom records were not kept. So we want to add as much information to them as we can. And finally, add categories for locations, whether it's a certain county, a certain graveyard, a certain surname, any categories you can find that apply to this profile. It's going to help if you add those things before you go. If you don't have a date already, you want to estimate a date, and here's some guidelines for men. If you have the wife's birth date, we assume he's a little older than she is. We assume that he's about 25 when he has his first child. At least it gives us a ballpark. And the reverse for women. We assume that they're a little bit younger and have children starting at about 20. We make sure that we include this template for the estimated date and a research note that says estimated date based on wife's documented birth date. Finally, we hope that you've discovered that this really is more fun than working the New York Times crossword or playing Sudoku. It is so much fun to solve these and feel like you've helped another researcher and you've helped our big tree. And I just cheer every time I get one solved. So if you'd like to do a little bit more and help us with the 350,000 unknowns in your particular neck of the woods or a country where you have expertise, we would love to have you get in touch with us. No pressure, but come and sign up. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And now we have some questions and answers.
And we're back. We hope that there are a few questions for us here. I see one from JRE that wanted to know if there is a African Canadian sticker. We do not have that right now, but if that's something that you're interested in, you can go out into the forum, into our G2G forum, excuse me, and request it.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to contact the well, right now we have the U.S. Black Heritage Project that is doing a lot of work with our African American ancestors and putting that sticker onto those profiles. So you might want to run out and talk to the Canadian project and see if they have an effort like that going on. Excuse me.
Yeah. Emma, who does the U.S. Black Heritage Project, is very involved all over the world. So I would contact Emma Macbeth, who heads that project. And I just want to say, Julie, I'm unable to see the chat or the questions, so I'm totally dependent on you.
Yeah, I've got it. We have a lot of really positive comments here.
Good.
Christine Miller said, thank you. Lots of wonderful info. John popped in and enjoyed the presentation. We had a couple of comments way back just about, FindaGrave, and it's helpful when they do have the parents listed. That makes research a little bit easier. It gives you a starting point.
And I did get my tongue twisted a couple times in there. I said married name when I meant to say maiden name. So I hope anybody who listens to it understands that I did know what I was talking about.
Yeah. Oh, you're forgiven.
Thank you.
There was one back here a little ways. I know Kay was mentioning a helpful tip. This was after they started singing 100 bottles of beer on the wall while we were trying to get rolling. Here we go. Kay had suggested if these terms are familiar to you, we have a couple of tools on WikiTree that help you clean up a profile. One of them is the automatic JEDCOM cleaner. It's just a little button up in the toolbar. If a profile has been imported from a JEDCOM, you can click that and it just cleans things up for you. Still might be a little bit of work left, but it's very, very helpful. Oh, and Christine said that she's spoken to Emma about the African Canadian profile, so they're hoping to incorporate that over the next year. Good. Just takes somebody asking sometimes.
Yes.
We'll wait a few more minutes and see if anybody else has any questions. We'd love to hear from you if you are interested in joining in on this. Actually, what I was going to do is go grab the project page.
I was going to say, some of you may not know that last weekend we did an unknowns challenge. We called it the Skeletons in the Closet Challenge. And we asked people to try to clean up either 10 unknowns from their own profiles, or if they didn't have any unknowns, lucky people, if they would work on some orphans. And we cleaned up well over 300 unknowns in one weekend. And we hope to do more of those kind of challenges to show people how much fun and how satisfying this is.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm posting a link to the free space page where Pam has organized all of the information on how to work on unknowns. Currently, we don't have the video posted from there. We will be adding that, and we'll make the slides available as a PDF file so that you guys can
that free
download those
space
if they're
page isn't
helpful.
really ready for the public yet. Give me a day or two. I don't think it's completely done, but.
Well, this is the original one here that I posted.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay.
So, yeah.
Good. Surely there's questions. I know I was confusing on some points. Ask questions.
Let's see. Do you have any estimates on how many of the unknowns on WikiTree are true unknowns, not likely to find a record, versus those that have just been completely researched?
I don't think that's a question we can even ask, because you don't know who's going to come along with a family Bible or who's going to do a DNA test. And what to me is a true unknown, I'll never figure that out. Somebody else comes along and solves it. And that's one reason that WikiTree is so much fun to be part of. There are some that are unlikely, but we just don't know. Research and the number of sources that have been digitized are just, the numbers exploding. There's so much more information than there was even a year ago. So I've been doing a little experiment with a group of profiles. I took the state of Iowa just as a study, and there were almost 1,300 unknowns, and I'm going to have about half of them solved within very short order, just because so many of them are easy to solve, and there are sources available that just weren't there when they were created. So most of them are solvable. There are some unknowns, but most of them can be solved with good research.
I think most of our truly unknowns are back in the medieval time period. So
several generations back anyway, when records
yes,
weren't as good.
Right. Or
but
they come from a place.
Of these unknowns are contemporary that somebody just didn't know how to research, or they worked on their mail line and just said unknown for all the women, which is what drives me crazy. That's why I do this.
Yeah. Yep, and it's addictive. It's like eating potato chips. You can't eat just one.
It is. It is. Absolutely.
Well, I'd love to hear some more questions if you've got them. We're glad that you stopped in. If we don't have any more here, we'll probably just wrap things up so that you guys can go enjoy some other videos that are going on today.
And I'm curious if there's anybody who's listening who's actively using maybe Archeon or Find My Past or some other system, and or even Ancestry, and how much these kind of tips would be helpful to you. I'd be interested to know.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of in my own little corner of the world here.
I know we have several efforts like this going on across WikiTree. One of them is headed by Kay Knight, who's in chat here. She does the Jedi Challenge.
Yes.
And she and her group of project members, challenge members, I don't know what to call them, are working on cleaning up profiles on WikiTree that have been imported through GEDCOM. That if you've run across any of those, you know that they're usually kind of a mess and they need some TLC. So they're all putting forth that effort. I have a group of people that I get together with every other Friday, and we do what we call Friday date night. And we go out and find profiles that don't have dates. And so we search for dates to fill in on that. And there's often crossover between these three efforts.
Of course there are.
Yeah.
Hooray for everybody who's working on any of these projects.
Oh yeah. And if you do know how they kind of get a little addictive. Sends you down a big rabbit hole. All right. Well, it looks like we have a lot of enthusiastic WikiTreeers watching. I don't see a lot of questions, so I think they're probably absorbing what you said, Pam.
Yay. Well, feel free to be in touch with me. I'm available if you have questions or a question with a specific profile. I'll probably jump in. So drop me a note.
Terrific. John Atkinson is one of our wonderful medieval genealogists. I hate to call you John, that doesn't sound right. But John works a lot with the pre-1500 profiles, and he
Yes.
knows how hard those are to work on, but he's very talented.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us. I hope you learned
Yes.
something. I'm sure you know
Thank
things
you.
I don't, so please put those into the hopper.
We're happy you came by. Enjoy the rest of WikiTree Day. We'll see you guys in the next videos.